Hi everyone and welcome back to a new tutorial on how to use the tool Landscape, the landscape material that I've created. The link is in the description. It's a tool for creating easy material for landscape, and it's based on my latest custom material that I created, layer-based and opaque and translucent custom materials. So the landscape material is based on the layer-based one. So when you're opening the landscape Unreal project, you're going to get this folder, the landscape material, the landscape folder. Inside, you're going to get a level here. And if you're going into material here, you're going to get into layer the ML main. That's what we're going to use. First, let's create a material instance. And you're going to get that material instance here. Then you can drag and drop that material into landscape material. This landscape is, if I'm going there, is using Nanite, and it's in 5.7, because landscape Nanite with 1.6 is not really working well. It can work, but it got a lot of error. So now, if I'm going into my instance material, I got this, the background and 3 layers. I can remove those 3 layers and keeping only the background. Then I can go into the folder ML, and you got this material layer. You can right click and create layer instance, or you can just go into instance and you got this MLE main. So now that we got our material, we can go into textures, and here we got our textures. So it's working in the same way than the custom materials tools that I created. It's with albedo, already, and normal. So if I'm going into texture default, I got grass, gravel, rock, and snow. Let's start with rock. So we can take our albedo, our normal, and our already, and it's working. Nice. Let's go now into UV, because I got a cube here. That cube is 1 meter. So yeah, it's a pretty big landscape. If I want something realistic, I can change the UV type to something like 5. That can work, but not more. And if you're doing that, in far away, you got nothing, you got a gray material. Why? Because we are losing detail at that distance. But we can change that, I'm going to show you later. If I'm going to U offset, I can change the offset of the UV. I can also change the rotation of the UV. To get a better look of the UV of your landscape, you can go into debug and UV debug. And you're going to get this grid that can help you for the debug of your UV. Then you got those parameters, very important parameters only for landscape. It's the scale of the UV based on the distance of the UV from the camera. So if I'm going into debug and check distance debug, I got this gradient here that is based on the camera. So the farther I'm going, the wider the landscape is going. The whiter it is, the far away it is, the blacker it is, the nearest it is. And you can change that here, distance range from camera for far and near. Then you can change the blend. If you want a little bit more of blend, you can do that. Let's change back a little bit everything, getting something like this. And going to get a better blending of everything of your scale. Now that I got this, I can change the UV scale far and near. I can uncheck distance debug and change the UV scale far from 10. And you can see the difference now. You got bigger UV here on the far than in closer. And that doesn't change the UV that is close to the camera. It's only change the UV that is furthest away. Now let's go into the UV variation. You can check random rotation and scale. By default, there are already a random UV, but you can change a lot more of parameters to get something more realistic, more breakable. Something like this. I'm really breaking the tile effect here. I'm going really far on the effect. Here we go. We still got some kind of tile effect, but it can work if I'm disabling UV debug. I've got my texture, something like this. That's working perfectly. Now that I've got my UV variation and my UV setup, I can change the albedo. You can do a lot of things with the albedo. You can obviously change the brightness of it. You can change the contrast. And you can change the saturation. Then you can also add a little bit of tint if you want. Just going to 0.4 because it's a rock. And you can switch to color if you only want to use one color for your material. That's here, but that's not really useful. Just in case. Then you got the albedo variation. That's a very useful tool. Let's go far away to see at the variation. Let's change the tint variation. If I'm going there and I'm adding a little bit of red, you can see that it's creating some variation based on this noise that is here that you can obviously change. If I'm taking noise, I'm gonna get something different. Here, I get something different. I can change the brightness of the noise, the contrasts, and everything. I can change the noise, min and max. Here is the brightness variation. It's not the brightness of the mask. I can change this right there and add a little bit more of blue. Perfect. Then getting something like this. And I can add a little bit more contrast and brightness to get something stronger. And now you can have a pretty good variation of your shading. And it's not gonna be really noticeable when you're close to your object, but when you are far, that's pretty good to have this albedo variation. Obviously, you can change the tiling if you want something really close to your object. But it's creating something like that, and that's not a good thing. I don't like it. So let's go back into 500. That was working pretty well. Perfect. Then you can obviously change the occlusion ambient and the displacement. So if I'm going into detail, I need to enable tessellation here, displacement scaling, and displacement fade. Now, if I'm going into my layer parameters, I'm going far away, I got a displacement here. It's too strong. So changing that displacement, I can go into deep contrast and put 0.1, for example. And it's creating a good displacement. You can obviously also change the brightness of it all. But let's not change it. 1 was good with a contrast of 0.1 to get something more subtle. And in closer shot, it's working pretty well. Can even change a little bit less, going like 0.04. Perfect. Now that I got this, I can change obviously the metalness, emissive, the normal, the roughness, and the specular, but I don't need it for my example right now. So now that I got this, I can add a layer. So same thing, I'm tapping MLE main. Sometimes the material will update, sometimes the material will not update. I don't know why. It's mainly on 5.6 that it's not updating. So you need sometimes to just remove that landscape material and to add it back so that you can update the material into your landscape. Here it's worked, that's nice. And now let's do again the same, but with another material, for example, the gravel. For the gravel, you can change also the UV and everything. If you're not happy with what you got with the UV variation that is here, you can change it. But for me, I think I'm gonna keep the same thing. And now let's go back into our blend assets. So same thing that for the material layer, you got a material layer blend with the main and the instance here. So you can type MLBY and you're gonna get material blend instance main. Inside it, you got multiple ways of blending your assets. So first of all, you got an 8 map if you want. So I'm typing 8 map, but it's more a mask map. That's an 8 map. So if I'm going into my default, my texture, I got gravel, grass, rock, snow, and water. For example, I want to add a gravel map. If I want to know if that's working or no, I can just go into my debug again and type UV debug, and you can see that it's not working with my map. So let's change some little things with the UV scale and the UV rotation. And now with -90, I got the mask, and now with the rotation and the scale well placed, I got the mask that I need. But I can still change it with a little bit of noise if I want more realism. Oh, I need a noise here. What I can also do is going to activate noise, go here, and here I got a noise map, and I can add my noise. So for example, any kind of noise can do the work. And it's gonna create some randomness into my already created mask. Obviously, I can change that noise if I want. You get something like this. Perfect. So I can choose to use a mask that I've created. So for example, in another software like UDIM, or I can just use a noise to create some randomness like this. Or I can combine both the noise and the 8 map, the mask map. If I'm using only the 8 map, I can still change some parameters for the 8 map, for example, the brightness and the contrast. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use the noise mask to get something like this. If I want with only the 8 map here, I can change the brightness and the contrast of it. So it's here, I can go far away in the brightness, or into the contrast, I can change this to something like that. I think I'm going to go like 1.4 and 1.2 in here. And that's perfect for my mask, for my material. Now I got my gravel. Let's name it gravel. And let's add another layer for the grass. Let's finish with a little time lapse on this material here. And here we go. In 10 minutes, I made this shading with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers with rock, gravel, grass, water, and snow, with different parameters, with different type of masking, with some only noise masking, with some full 8 map masking, and with some both of them. You can mix with both of them and that looks pretty good. You can have some really cool, realistic and variant shading that can work in close and in far distance with the scale by distance feature. So I hope you liked this tutorial and this kind of workflow, work around the shading method, this tool. The link of the tool will be in the description. I hope you liked it and see you later.